was, but you took us through some material. So this is actually the first of 3 sections, the spiritual walk. Okay, we talk about also the spiritual weapons and spiritual warfare. Okay, so but first of all, this is the information I think I grabbed from something you had brought. We're looking at overall, aside from the warfare and the weapons, just our spiritual walk. Okay, and we've covered this ground before. At least some of us have. Tamara had not covered it with us. Brian, don't think so. I forget sometimes what's been mentioned and what hasn't, just kind of throughout.
We went through the Armageddon somewhat.
Okay.
Since I've been here.
Okay, since you've been here, okay. And Vanessa, probably not, okay. But, you know, we'll be reviewed for some of you, okay. The race or the fight is, what's our word? Who remembers? What's our word? This word here. Agone, okay. Means a contest, means an effort, anxiety, conflict, or contention. Okay, the agone, okay. Philippians 1:29 and 30. Sister Linda, how about that?
For unto you it is given in the behalf of Christ, not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake, having the same conflict which ye saw in me, and now here to be in me. Philippians 1:29, 30.
All right. And to kind of tie this in with Brother Brian's devotion, they were having a conflict, okay, the nation of Israel with Amalek, okay, who came up cowardly, came up behind them to attack from the rear, the aged, the women, and the kids, okay, very cowardly. And the Lord never forgot that. You know, if you study this out, it's picked up elsewhere in the Old Testament. He never forgot that, okay. But notice it thrust the Israel in to have to kind of rally and group as an army, as a unit, okay, to fight the one enemy. And so we're in this together. This is our conflict. It's not Andrew's conflict, okay. It's not Vanessa's conflict, okay, by themselves, okay. It's our conflict, okay. Sure, we have our own personal battles or demons, okay, but collectively, Paul said, it's given unto you. Guess what you get when you enter a New Testament church? You get to join up with the conflict. Okay, it now becomes yours. Okay, and so for unto you it is given in the behalf of Christ, not only to believe on him, that's the easy part. Right? That's the easy part, to believe, okay, but also to suffer for his sake, having the same conflict which you saw in me, and now here to be in me. So there's continued rumors of Paul being thrown in jail again over his witness. All right, so he says, hey guys, we're in this together. Yeah, my conflict is now your conflict. All right, Sister Tanya. She was just going to take
a break, yeah. For I would that ye know what great conflict I have for you, and that for them at Laodicea, and for as many as have not seen my face in the flesh. Colossians 2:1.
So we can put the word here, given our words to kind of define this. What other word up here could you put in here for what great conflict I have for you? Challenge, okay. I'm thinking of another one. Effort, I'm thinking of another one. Anxiety. That's the word I would put in there, okay. So, you know what great anxiety I have for you and for them that believe at Laodicea. Why would Paul, to the Colossian church, of course you have to read the entire letter to get maybe what's in the back of his mind, but why do you suppose he had great anxiety for this church?
He started it?
Well, there were some things going on in the moment. Okay? While he's even sitting down there writing this letter, he knows that on the outside there's wolves attacking. Wolves. Okay? And so he had anxiety for these people because he couldn't sometimes always be there to help them and to directly fight the wolves that were attacking the flock. So he did have great conflict or anxiety for them at Laodicea, and for as many as I had not seen in my face. So at Laodicea, one of the churches, of course, that Jesus wrote to, okay, in the 7 churches of Asia. All right. Oh no.
But even after that, we had suffered before and were shamefully entreated
know at Philippi, we were bold in our God to speak unto you the gospel of God with much contention.
Okay, with much. Now, what word would you put there? With much.
Conflict?
Effort.
I would say effort. I like that word effort. I think that would fit in there. So if you go and you read in the book of Acts at the history of how the church at Philippi was formed, then you would understand it was with a lot of effort and boldness and all that that he had to, that work was formed, okay? Remember, he was thrown into prison there and beaten. All right, Sister Julie, how about this one?
Fight the good fight of faith, lay a hold on eternal life, whereunto you thou art also called and has professed a good profession before many witnesses.
All right, so here Paul's telling Timothy to fight the good fight of faith, okay? So again, our agone is, basically, put forth that effort, okay? Put forth that effort. It is a conflict. We are in an arena, fighting arena, okay? So you may as well just set your mind to it, that this isn't going to be a cakewalk. The Christian life is not a cakewalk, right? But I'll tell you what, anything in your life that you've had to fight for, or spend a lot of energy toward, put into, when you see the results of that, then you go, it was worth it, because you invested in it. Okay? Your investment in that is half the reward when you see it pay off. Okay? So it's going to pay off for us. Okay? Okay, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Okay? And the payoff, later on in that passage, henceforth, who remembers? Henceforth there is, maybe we need to go there, 2 Timothy 4.
Laid up for me a crown of righteousness, not only to,
Which the Lord gives me.
which the Lord, the righteous doesn't give to me at that day, but not only me, but also those who love his appearing.
Yes. Amen. It came to the mind, okay? See, Brian, that's what by reading and reading and reading and going over and over, it's gonna stick and you're gonna be able to spout out scripture like that, okay? Okay, so by next week. I'm just gonna say.
Gotcha.
Oh.
I'm not worried if it's one verse.
Trust me, this is years.
I can
Years of accumulation, years of study, years of again and again and again and again. Okay. All right. I fought a good fight. All right. All righty, Brother Brian.
Wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us.
All right, this is of course Old King James, isn't it? You read it different than yours, okay? But here's the main idea of this. We're not alone. Others have gone before us in this same conflict, just in a different era, different time frame. So it's just our turn, it's our generation's turn now to prove ourselves whether or not this God is really our main focus or not. Okay? And so thankfully our Anabaptist forefathers showed when they were up that God was their first and foremost drive. And so now it's just our turn. Okay, what are we then going to do for the next generation? Well, we're going to set the example that they set for us, and on and on and on. So this is called a race, but this is our word, agona. So what word can we put in there that might help us, because when you think of a race, right, we think of, when you kids think of a race, what do you think of?
Running.
Running, okay, maybe around a track, or maybe a car race, or a horse race, or a dog race, right? There's all kinds of things that race, right? Or the space race. You kids don't know about the space race, but there's all kinds of things that are said in that setting. So what other word could we put in here for race? Maybe that would help explain it. Let's read this again. Wherefore, seeing we also, in addition to these other brethren, are compassed, circled about with so great a cloud of witnesses. All this whole cloud, it's this arena. We're like in a bowl, And up above us is this whole arena of former witnesses, former men and women who kept the faith. Okay, we read about them in the Bible. Let us, just like them, lay aside every weight, every encumbrance, every obstacle, every hindrance, and the sin, singular, the sin, which does so easily beset us, overcomes us, gets in our way, throws us off base. And let us run with patience the agona that is set before us, just like it was set before them. So what word would you put in? Contest, yeah. It is a contest, okay? The contest, okay? Now what's
It's like
our,
a relay, isn't it?
hmm?
Kinda like they passed the baton.
It is,
to you.
exactly, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, yeah, everyone in that relay, usually there's four, often there's four, right? Sets it up for the one next after that, okay? So if they're, if they're crossing the finish line last and the other competitors, they've already received their baton, then it really puts a hurt on the next guy picking the baton, right?
Right.
And so on and so on, right? So, I think we talk about this word, oh, wait, maybe not. Maybe not, that I did, okay. The word is agona. So what other English word do we have that's kindred to this word, agona?
Agony.
Agony. It's our English word, agony. Okay? So now we understand why it's a contest, an effort, anxiety, conflict, or contention. Our English word agony brings this word out. Okay? The Christian life a lot of times brings us some agony. Okay? Because that's what it is. We're to run with patience this Christian life that sometimes is, included, agony is included in it. It's not every day we wake up with a smile. Okay, but the secret is to run with patience, because not every day is one of those days, right? Not every day. Oh, there'll be plenty, but not every day, right? There's good days. Weeping is for throughout the night, but what comes in the morning? Joy. Okay. All right. So, what describes our spiritual walk? Persecution. Okay. All right, Asher, can you pronounce this word for us?
Flipsis.
Flipsis. Yes, yes. Do you have a lisp? No. Just Flipsis. All right. Means pressure, afflicted, anguish, burden, tribulation, or trouble. Okay. All right. Sister Tamra.
Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while, for when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended.
Now you know why Philip got you a New King James.
Because I can't read.
It is a little tough on the tongue. Okay. All right. So this, of course, is the context here is the seeds, the four seeds of the four soils. And so this one falls on rocky soil. And because he did not develop a root system in that rocky soil, he lasts for a little bit, he springs up quickly, but then the sun comes out and bakes on him and heats and everything, and then he withers and wilts. Okay? So tribulation, he explains, or persecution arises because of the word, and he is offended. Okay, so this flipsis arrives. And what this is, what tribulation is to us, is a filter. Okay? We read in the Old Testament that the Lord sent all the trouble and people and situations, brought them to situations to test them, to see if they were really on board with Him or not. They were tests, so we have a lot of tests too. All right, Brother Phil.
You know, the great Dolly Parton said it best, Pastor.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's one of my favorite singers of all time. That's right, yeah. It's a way to make a living.
I'm interested how you're gonna tie this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. The great Dolly Parton said it this way, Sister
Don't you
Julie.
point at me.
She said that the trees that go through the worst storms have the deepest roots.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, thank you.
yes.
Mic drop. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, you've seen those trees just bend with that storm, yeah, yeah. Houses flying everywhere, boards, and there's those trees just standing there, yeah.
The trees that have gone through the toughest storms have the deepest roots.
Yeah.
Or as she would say, the trees that go through the
Oh,
storm."
right, yeah, let's move on that one, yeah.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor shall ever be.
Right. So he's telling us, look, there is coming a time where there will be this great persecution, this pressure, this affliction. So we want to make sure that we have a deep root system going into this thing. Okay? Another word I like to use is momentum. Momentum. Carry the momentum that you've been building, carry it forward, okay, in the times where it's not so rough, maybe little ripples. Okay, but you know the waterfalls are just ahead, so while the current's picking up and the rapids are starting to build, you're getting momentum in this thing. Then the cliff comes.
We had a Bible study the other day, and a lady said she likes Matthew 4.
Matthew 4.
Yeah. I pressed her on it, she couldn't find out why, but,
Mhm.
so we decided to go through it. Must have been something there she liked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
But one of the things that stood out to me that was a little bit different this time than any other time that we've read that, and having to do with this,
Mm.
is, you know, when the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days
Uh-huh.
without eating or drinking. I'm sure, you know, that was a miracle in and of itself, but
Uh-huh.
the overall point was is that he was getting focused
Yeah.
for his ministry.
Uh-huh.
And so, at the end of those 40 days, that's when Satan appeared to him, because he's a coward.
Yeah.
We talked about the
He's
other,
a coward.
Amalek being a coward, he's a coward.
Uh-huh.
And so, I look at it like the very first temptation had to do with food. And all he had to do was take those stones, and Satan said, all you have to do is take those stones and make them bread. And I thought, you know, all that Jesus had already gone through, the 40 days of fasting and the, you know, the spiritual fasting and all the things that he's doing to focus. And in his weakest moment, he comes to the point where he can just snap his fingers and eat and take away his hunger. And he didn't do it. And I think, you know, in Hebrews it talks about how Jesus is our, he endured all things on behalf of us. He's our forerunner. We look to him. And I'm thinking, how in the world, when in our toughest time, when there's persecution in our lives, and we're at the end of our rope, how could we look to Jesus if he copped out and just said, I'm just gonna turn those to bread and I'm gonna eat it?
Yeah.
You know, when he didn't tap out, as it were.
Yeah.
And we can look to Jesus, even in the toughest times, because he was in the toughest times and he didn't take the easy way out.
Right.
And so I look at that and think, well, you know, that kind of it reaffirms for me that he really is the one that we can look to, even in the toughest times.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he didn't stop.
Yeah. With 100% confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. And there's people like that in our lives too, that, you know, we look up to Jesus as supreme, but then sometimes we need those human, you know, let's say heroes too at times. And that's why it's so crucial and important that we rally together and be there for one another as well. Like Brian said in his devotion, you know, when they group together, then they become stronger than just the one. Okay? Because now there's the interest. You know, in our business meeting, we have a motion, and then we have a what? A second to that emotion. Okay, to that emotion.
Hey, Smokey.
Yeah, right.
Keep it going.
A second to that motion. Okay. So now the interest is doubled. Now there's two people interested in that motion. Okay. And so that brings it on the floor. Now there's discussion to see how wide that interest is among the group. Okay. Then if it's strong enough, of course, then it's voted on and passed. Okay. So our group effort is important. Well, together we look at Jesus in that example. Okay, great tribulation. I think we're coming into, I think we're not too far out. Some of you that have joined us are joining us in a time where, you know, I think it's just up ahead of us. You know, we're kind of late day. We're going on into the field later in the day to solicit more workers later in the age, and trying to salvage some. Okay, these things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So our spiritual walk, I mean, the Bible just is preparing us to mentally toughen up to what is out there against us. Okay, so you kids are mentally, so that you'll be mentally tough, okay, even at your level and inexperience of life. You'll see role models in your brethren. You see your first two role models are your parents. Okay, you'll see it in your brethren, and then lessons like this just continue to reinforce. Be of good cheer. Vanessa, would you like to read that second one?
Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of God.
Okay, so here's your group effort. Confirming the souls of the disciples. Okay, one person seeks that, to confirm, to establish the souls, the lives of the disciples, and to exhort them to continue in the faith. Okay? Because we're all going to go through this tribulation. Okay? Through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of God. And that's not necessarily a reference to the tribulation. It's just through trials, through troubles, through conflict, while we push through on our way to the kingdom. Okay? Not only so, but we glory. Oh boy, we didn't need this, did we? Yes, we do need this. Because it's one thing to study about tribulation. Oh yeah, it's there, it's going to happen. But then when it comes, Sister Linda, how do we react to it? How do we respond to it? If it's on the agenda of a Christian's life, can't avoid it. The only thing we can do is to plow through and embrace it.
With a good attitude.
Huh?
With a good attitude.
With the attitude, there's the key, that's the key, okay? And not only so, but we glory in tribulations. Okay? That word glory is a very interesting word. And I hesitate to kind of go into that right now because Peter keeps threatening to bring a devotion on glory, so I don't want to, trip the hand there, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience. So tribulation has its place in the whole schematic. Okay, it has its work, and that work is then to produce patience in us. Okay.
I think, what was it, Paul, who listed off everything that had happened to him over the years in the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes. Yes.
then, and all those, I can't remember exactly, being stoned and shipwrecked, and then, you see Second Timothy, even after all of that, he's, toward the end of his life, he's looks back on everything that happened, and, what was it, say, he counts it for naught, or something like that,
Mhm. Yeah.
He knew what he endured those things for.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, he kind of all but waste. In other words, all of his energy prior to knowing the Lord is I'm counting that but waste right now. It doesn't really matter to me right now. Just the righteousness of Christ. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good point. Good point. All right. So with that, Asher?
Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer.
All right. Everybody in the city will have submitted themselves under these formulas, this formula. Okay, that's why they're there, because they submitted to it. Islam means submission. Okay, it's a forced submission in many cases. Okay, but Jesus wants us to bend the knee or to submit willingly and voluntarily. Okay, because we realize what He's done for us. And so everybody in the city who's in a white robe will have gone through the same channels, different, yes, specifically, but overall collectively will have been bruised and battered and beaten up. But one descriptive will hang over all of their heads that begins with an O. They all want to be under the banner, all dubbed as what? Obedient and overcomers. Okay? And so that's what they'll have collectively. Okay? They submitted in obedience, therefore regarded as overcomers. Okay? Overcoming of what? Overcoming the tribulation that the Bible promised us. Okay? All right. Oh, and then continuing instant. That means ever ready, not like the battery kids, but ever ready in prayer. Okay? Constantly in prayer mode. We call it prayer mode, prayer mode, prayer mode. Okay? All right. Well, here's another one that describes our spiritual walk is, Lydia, would you like to, what does that word look like to you? Stenos, okay, all right? Narrow, okay? Meaning to crowd together into a narrow place, a squeeze, straight, pressure, distress, or anguish, okay? Grandpa has a device on his workbench, and it's got a handle on it, and you can put something in there, and then you start turning this handle, and the jaws of this comes closer together, narrow, 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 until it holds that piece in place, okay, real tight, okay? What's that called? Daddy doesn't have one, does he?
Never mind, neither does Uncle Bill.
Yeah. They skipped shop growing up.
Xbox.
Xbox, right, yes, right. All right.
Vice.
It's called a vice, okay? And so it's a squeeze, it's a tight spot, it's a squeeze, it's pressure, right? So, he says, enter into the straight, the narrow, okay? For wide is the gate, then broad is the way that leads to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. Because straight, pressing, narrow is the gate, and narrow is the way which leads unto life, and few there be that find it. But I tell you what, like I said, whenever you've invested in something heavily, and you put your whole lock, stock, and barrel and hope in it, and then it finally pans out, and there you are, realizing it, it's your new reality, you're going, yes, I'm so glad I held out. So glad I held out. Okay? And so, it will be life. It will mean life. Okay? Tribulation and anguish, stenos, upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the Gentile. Okay? So God's going to inflict his own pressure. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress, that squeeze, that pressure, persecution, famine, nakedness, peril, or sword? No, I hope not. I hope not. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. But in all things, approving ourselves as the ministers of God in much patience. Notice that word patience keeps popping up. Because that's a very crucial element, that attitude. That is very important to this whole thing. Because the tribulation is on its way. It's around the corner. It's coming. We can't sidestep it. It's going to come at you. It's like a heat sink missile, right? It's going to find you. Man, if you can try to hide, but it's going to find you. And so you may as well just face it and be prepared for it when it comes. Right? Not in despair, but in all things proving ourselves as the ministers of God, in much patience, in afflictions, in necessities, in distresses. That's how we prove ourselves, by manning up. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, and distresses, for Christ's sake. There's the ticket, there's the key. You know, we can look at the tribulation that comes our way in the spiritual walk as, wow, God's hitting me again. You know, I mean, my knees are wobbly, my hands are hanging down, and he just keeps wailing on me. You know, why? What's the answer? What does Hebrews tell us? Why does God chasten us? Because what? Because he loves us. Okay? That's how he's showing he loves. Well, boy, maybe he could just love us a little less. No, that's important for us. He needs to show us. Okay?
We've said this a lot of times before, that, you know, there isn't anybody that's gonna be approved, you know, in the end, and hear the words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," who didn't have to go through these things.
Right.
The disciples locked in on that, like
Yeah.
you referenced
Yeah.
slides ago. Through many tribulations, we must enter in the kingdom of
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
And so I look at it like, no one's gonna get off scot-free.
No.
If you really want this,
Uh-huh.
all those who desire to live godly in
Yeah.
Christ will suffer some
Yeah.
sort of persecution.
Yes.
And so I think, armed with that knowledge of, well, this is what I need to go through,
Uh-huh.
and it's part of the life.
Yes.
I think it helps me, you know, realize that it's a necessary thing that God's doing.
Yes.
And I look at, you know, when trials come into my life or our lives as a family or whatever, or even a church,
Mhm.
is that it's all part and parcel with the life that we are called to
Yes.
live.
Yes.
And we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? And it is so worth it.
Yeah.
And we just have to hang in there, because, you know,
Yes.
I look at it like, we're gonna experience problems in the world. People in the world experience problems too.
Yeah.
It's just that they don't have an outlet. They're not on the right path
Uh-huh.
when they experience those things. So if you're gonna do it anyway,
Mhm.
do it when you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what helps me.
Yeah.
Where it means something instead of
Yeah.
just going through something.
Mhm. Right, yeah. You know, think about this. In the city, they'll be there as a group, collectively, as a group, having shared this commonality, having gone through life, but overcame it, okay? So it's like, you know, someone showing you their scars, what it cost them, what did they have to overcome? So they're showing you their scars of life, and then another brother or sister shows you their scars, okay? What it cost them personally, okay? And so, well, you got that in common. Then another. You know, pretty soon the whole team, the whole unit, the whole group is showing all these scars, okay? But they have to identify with someone more important than that, the reason for which they took those scars. Okay? In walks Jesus into the room, showing his scars. You see the commonness there, okay? So no one will be there scarless. If they are, they don't belong. They won't fit. They won't fit in. The ones that are scarless are outside the room. They're not in the room. They're outside the room. Okay? And so that's why it's important, as Julie says, the attitude in which we go into this. Paul, and Noah referenced Paul's long list of things he had to endure. He says, I take pleasure in these, because I know that it's another time to step up and to prove that I love Jesus. And I'm not backing down, okay? And the devil can come at me again and again and again. I'm still gonna love Jesus, okay? What did Job say? Though he slay me, okay? And he knew that God was doing this, or he felt that God was doing this, okay, to him. Okay, of course, in his humanness, he described it as God throwing lightning bolts at him and attacking him, but he didn't have the full picture, did he? He didn't. Okay, but God was doing this because God was proud of it. Okay, and so, now I lost my thought. Though he slay me, Job says, though he slay me, you know, if he kills me, okay, yet will I what?
Serve.
I will serve him. Okay, so Job was going to go down to his last breath, you know, trusting the Lord in this. Okay, so we have to as well, because those are the witnesses we're surrounded by. One day we'll join those witnesses, and we'll all hook up together in the city. Okay? All right. Sheep among wolves, learning to live with others who are unkind, selfish, proud. I mean, let's face it, all of us have these qualities. It's not like, you know, oh yeah, we gotta learn to live with those, people less fortunate than us, you know?
Andy goes that way.
Yeah, you know, we're all this way, but we're trying to overcome these negative traits because they're not becoming of Christ. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Now Jesus knew that his own disciples had their own problems. I mean, they'd be walking along the way, Jesus is leading the procession, and behind him, you know, these, you know, disciples are arguing between themselves over something. Okay? So he has to stop and turn around and say, you know, okay, what, you know, and have to address it. Okay? But they were in training. They were sheep in training. Okay? And so, but collectively, he knew that they were separated from the rest. So I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. When you go into these towns and villages and areas that I send you on ahead, you're not always going to be met with, hey, come on in, we'll welcome, you know, the dinner's where, you know, you're going to be met with resistance and hostility. They're going to probably throw rocks at you. They're going to persecute you. They're not going to like your message. Okay? I'm sending you into a whole pack of wolves. But attitude, be you therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. That's how we approach the wolves. You gotta be cunning, right? You gotta be cunning, right, Noah?
It
Can't
doesn't
just
say
let
weak.
Hmm?
It doesn't say weak.
No,
in the
no,
description.
no. You gotta be cunning. You gotta be wise. They are wolves. So you gotta know the nature of wolves. So you gotta protect yourself and prepare. Okay. Harmless. They are people.
Sometimes being wise is not saying anything at all.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Probably more sense
Uh-huh.
than not.
Proverbs
Yes.
say, don't cast your pearls for pigs. you
Yes.
know, And I know I've been in situations where if I wanted to speak up,
Uh-huh.
it would do more damage.
Yes.
Than if I just was quiet.
Quiet. Yes.
You know, because
Yeah.
I know when people are on tear, and
Mhm.
you're not gonna convince them,
Right.
you're only gonna do
Yeah.
more damage. And the reason I know that is because not only have I done that, but
Mhm.
I've seen other people who profess at my work, who profess, you know, Jesus, and they'll wear shirts with Jesus on them.
Ah, right.
And then they get into silliest arguments
Mhm.
ever,
Mhm.
and about these things, and the people that are on the other side will just, you know, their minds are made up, and they're just gonna rip them apart, and the other people take them on, and they're gonna,
Yeah.
but that's just doing more damage,
It is.
you know, really, and it's just
Yeah.
being quiet.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, obviously, there's a time to speak up.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes it's just best to say, you go on with your bad self.
Mhm.
you know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be over here when you're ready in your semi-right mind to have a normal conversation.
Right, when you become human again, we'll talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and the Proverbs also say that he who is, you know, he's quiet, he doesn't, he says, even a foolish person who remains quiet in situations is esteemed wise, okay, because he's quiet.
He
Okay?
doesn't open his mouth and
He
show.
doesn't open his mouth, yeah. Insert both feet. All right. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So watch out for those wolves. All right, section 2. How much time we got? Time 2?
Yep.
Maybe we'll stop there. But let me just give you a little section 2. Okay, so spiritual walk, spiritual warfare. Here's where we get into our weapons. All right. So again, this is all review, but let's stop right there, and we'll start at section 2 next week. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go. Father, we ask your blessing on this.